Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us once again on the Marketing Resolution YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and share these videos with anyone that you think might need the information. This is number 5 in the series of 5 with Rachel Virk. She is a family lawyer and mediator. Hi, Rachel. Thanks very much for recording with me again.
Good to see you, Natalie.
So, Rachel, I want to finish up this series with questions about how do we handle a divorce when there are children involved. And I guess that the 3 major questions that I have that your book highlighted are what do we say to our children? How do we tell them that we're getting a divorce? When do we tell them? At the beginning, in the middle, at the end? And yes, I mean, how do we handle the reality, the harsh reality of their lives are going to change? What do we do with our kids?
Well, let me also say that on my website, virk-law.com, I have a 2-minute video. It's about 2 minutes. The conversation can take about 2 minutes. Doesn't have to be a long thing initially, but let's get to the when and how and where. So generally, children have seen that mom and dad don't get along. Maybe they're not sleeping in the same room. Maybe they never see signs of affection, hugs, kisses, endearing acts. Maybe they see that there's fighting and discord and stress, and they know that something isn't right. It's kind of like being in a workplace where pink slips are going around every paycheck, where people are getting fired, and that dread and anticipation is worse than holding the actual pink slip and saying, okay, now I have to make plans. So sometimes there's a big sense of relief for the children to hear that something is going to happen. But you don't want to tell them when nothing concrete is happening. And you also don't want to wait too long and not tell them until there's boxes in the hallway and somebody has looking at brochures for new apartments. Around the time something's going to change, someone is getting ready to move out or pack up boxes, that's the time. And ideally, both parents will sit down together in a comfortable setting, and together will tell their child, I'm sure you've seen that mom and dad are not happy together. We've decided that we will be happier if we become a 2-home family, and you have a home with mom and a home with dad, and we will keep your life as much the same as we possibly can. This is not your fault in any way, but we're going to, pretty soon, mom is going to move out or dad is going to move out, and we're going to start a process which will probably end in a divorce, which is just a piece of paper signed by a judge. That's all that is. But we both love you. We will never stop loving you, and we will take care of you. Do you have any questions? Those are the main points. That's it. That's all you have to say. And if the 2 people say it together, it's not, oh, your mother is breaking up our home because she's involved with your soccer coach, or your dad is breaking up our home because he's running off with whoever, his coworker. Your child is programmed and wired to love both parents. They have to love both parents. And if you try to turn a child against one parent, it only hurts that child. Now, there are reasons for divorces which sometimes are due to one parent. Maybe one parent will not address their mental health or their substance abuse issue. And maybe it's necessary to keep a child safe. And in those cases, maybe parents can't sit down together. And one parent might need to say, I've decided that we need to live separately. Mom and dad need to live separately because there are things your mother or father is doing that are not healthy. You can love your parent, but you don't have to love the fact that they're drinking too much, or they have a mental health issue that they're not medicating properly. Honesty is the best thing. There are people who don't want to tell a child, your dad's an alcoholic, okay? If dad's an alcoholic, child needs to understand at some point, dad has a problem with alcohol. And the right thing to do is to figure out why dad's relying on alcohol, which probably is going to involve some intensive therapy to figure out what unhappiness generally from childhood he's self-medicating, and whether it's alcohol or spending or sex addiction or a narcotics addiction or shopping. I think I mentioned that, gambling, overeating, all these addictive behaviors. They're usually rooted in some unhappiness that's not being addressed. Or somebody has bipolar disorder that's getting way out of control when that party's in their 30s, early 40s, excuse me. It needs to be medicated. And the right thing to do is to tell a child, we have to take care of our physical bodies, we have to take care of our emotional bodies. And if we have a mental health issue, we need to take care of that and address it. Sometimes medication's a good thing. If a person's resistant to medication, then there are other things that they need to do to address that issue other than self-medicating with alcohol, which is a common thing. Or if somebody has an alcohol or other addictive problem, they need to address it. And it's not inappropriate to, in a proper, non-judgmental way, tell a child, somebody has this issue, and until they can get it together, we're going to be better off in this other location. Now, you don't want to say, oh, because we have to keep you safe from your father or your mother. Then we start getting into a whole parental alienation thing. And just as an aside, parental alienation can come about where a parent acts like, oh, you have to go with your mother or father. Keep your phone on you. Let me know that you're safe. And the child's like, what? I mean, I'm just going over my parents' home. What's the problem? And speaking of that, just because we're having a sort of it's Rachel rambling discourse, going to your parents' home. Where is your parents' home? If we have the conversation with the child and say, dad's moving out, and dad moves out, and child never sees where dad's living, that's not a good thing either, because it's like dad fell off the face of the earth. Even if dad shows up for the games and comes to the house maybe on weekends and hangs out, or otherwise is picking the child up and visiting here and there, the child needs to know where the party who's living is living. How long a drive is it from their home to mom's or dad's new home? And they need to be able to picture mom or dad in their new home. Is mom or dad on the couch in the basement at a friend's house and they're embarrassed by those humble digs and they don't want the child to see that? Child needs to see that. Child needs to see that dad or mom is okay, that they have a place to live, that they have a home, which at the moment is kind of maybe a temporary, humble interim home, but they need to know where that parent is instead of them just kind of falling off the face of the earth and them not knowing how far away that they are. So there's a time, when something's about to happen, that's when you would tell a child. Ideally, two people tell them together. The place should not be in the child's favorite, happiest place, because maybe now they're going to associate that with bad news. You may not want to tell them right before they go to sleep in their bed, because now you're almost setting up a sort of a PTSD habit of maybe now whenever they start trying to go to sleep, they remember lying there and hearing that news in that room. Usually the television room, a comfortable setting, not necessarily a public setting. I've had a case or two, because I do ask my clients, especially in mediation, did you tell them, how did they react? Every now and then I'll hear, oh, this child or that child did not take it well, ran out crying, screaming, whatever. If a child's going to react badly, don't tell them at, the restaurant where they can't be comfortable expressing their feelings. Tell them in a place where they can feel comfortable expressing their feelings. And that's usually going to be something like the TV room or something like that.
That is really, really good advice. And it's, it harkens back to something that my parents used to say. And that was, you can be as hard as you want on the issues, but you have to always be gentle with people. And I think especially when children are involved, you need to be gentle, you need to be simple, and you need to be careful. And you can then go on and handle the issues as strongly as you need to handle the issues, but to be gentle always with the people, including your ex-to-be. You just have to take the high road, and when children are involved,
And they need to know that you're never going to stop loving them. They might think, oh, you don't love daddy anymore, or daddy doesn't love you anymore, you don't love mommy anymore, or mommy doesn't love you anymore. And then they think, well, that means mommy or daddy could stop loving me. And they have to understand that maybe mommy and daddy no longer want to spend their lives together, but they will never stop loving you. And let's say, and this is a made up scenario, but let's say a child who's 4 spills juice on the carpet, and all of a sudden there's a big fight, and then mom or dad leaves and never comes back. They will think that mom or dad left because they spilled the juice on the rug that caused a big fight. And although they may never articulate that, they think they're responsible for the divorce. So it's important to tell the child, this is in no way related to you. It is no way your fault. Sometimes kids are the kind of the focus of some conflict between parents, and it's easy for especially a young child to feel it's all their fault, and they need to be told it's not. And also, parents can be so caught up in their own drama, their own mental health, their own upset, they're not really paying attention to the fact excuse me, that their kids can't go read self-help books and get into therapy on their own. And they may just assume that their child is okay, and maybe the child is burying themselves in their studies and activities, but they're not okay. So it is important to just check in and say, are you okay? Do you want to talk? Do you want to talk to somebody other than me? Oh, hey, there's a group at your school through the guidance office with other kids whose folks are separating, because kids know other kids whose parents have gone through terrible divorces. And when they hear divorce, they might think they're never going to see their dad again, or they're never going to have any money to do anything anymore, or they're going to have to go live in some terrible place because they can't afford anything, and they're going to have to move far away or go live with grandma and grandpa. Their minds are going to make up so much stuff. It's important to tell them, do you have any questions? We're going to try to keep your life as much the same as possible. This is not your fault. We will never stop loving you. And I'm not even getting into, and perhaps it's a topic for another day, but there are a lot of things parents do that are hurtful and harmful and wrong when they're, and you know what? I used to always think that everything is a shade of gray, but you know what? When it comes to divorce, often there is a right and there is a wrong. And not that I, Rachel, am the arbiter of all that is correct, but I will tell you that if it's hurting a child or someone else, generally, especially because children are kind of innocent in the whole thing, it's probably wrong. And there are actions parents can take that harm their children. So I'll go out there and say, and therefore those actions are wrong. And it's wrong to badmouth your spouse and involve them in the proceedings and use them as spies and messengers and tell them they have to think this or they have to think that, or they can't do this or they can't do that. And parental alienation is a thing. And there are parents who will try to alienate their children from the other parent. And often that backfires because usually years later, the child realizes just exactly who did what and why, and that there was a selfishness there. And they will often do a 180. And it's like they can't have a relationship with both parents, which is really sad. Even people who are flawed, and nobody is perfect, even people who cheated or lied or drink or were physically abusive, if they're not addressing those issues, that's unfortunate for that person. And if they're not addressing them and it's a danger to the child, then the child isn't going to be around that person. And that's a loss for everybody. But if the person is addressing behaviors or is not engaging in bad behaviors, there's no reason for a child not to have a relationship with that parent. And, here in Northern Virginia, we often, by agreement, not necessarily in court, people will do a 50-50 custody thing with 2 transitions, every Wednesday to dad and back to mom Monday or Friday night. So every Wednesday night to dad, back to mom, either Friday night or Monday night, depending on who's got the weekend. It looks like 2255, 2255. So child's with mom every Monday night, Tuesday night, with dad every Wednesday night, Thursday night, and the weekends are alternated. So we always know where the child is Monday, Tuesday. We always know where the child is Wednesday, Thursday. And if it's a very small child, maybe that 5-day period with the weekend, we carve out 5 hours from 12 to 5 or 4 hours for the other parent. Or if the child really wants more of a home base to start school, maybe dad's weekend ends Sunday night instead of Monday night. Or maybe if there's a boy and a girl, we take the first week, and on her Tuesday and his Wednesday, they each have one child, so that there's mommy son night and daddy daughter night and mommy daughter night and daddy son night. So first week of every month, Tuesday and Wednesday, they each swap. So there are frameworks for how to share kids. There are frameworks for people to co-parent. Good mediators, good collaborative practitioners, seasoned divorce attorneys who are negotiating can sit down and craft a whole nice arrangement. But you go to court, it's kind of all or nothing, and it's going to be a fight. And in my opinion, nobody really wins everything. And I have had the case even where somebody does win, and then the other side is so angry, they make things worse. You know, not that you should give them what they wanted, because that wouldn't have been right either. But sometimes, you know, you won, and now you see what the other party's doing because they're so angry about it, and they're just hurting the child even more. So there are people that are definitely selfish, and they will put themselves before the kids. And they might feel they're doing the right thing, or they might just only be seeing what they want to see about what they think their future should look like. But it's wonderful, and it's uplifting to do mediations where I can see people who are co-parenting and who both want to be parents. And sometimes a divorce almost doesn't change anything about how they co-parent. They keep doing the same thing from two homes. And it's very heartwarming to see people who don't hate each other just because they're getting a divorce. They co-parent, they put their kids first, they don't do all those destructive things. They tell their kids together, they tell them in a safe environment, in a loving way, and the kids will be just fine. Kids of divorce do just fine if the parents don't fight. That is the one thing. So we're going to wrap up soon, but I want to leave that one main thought. Kids of divorce do just fine generally if the parents are not fighting. But you can almost guarantee that when the kids are stuck in the middle of conflict and there's a lot of litigation, a lot of stuff going on, that is what damages the children, not the divorce, the fighting.
I like the point that you made that, you know, if you concentrate on the positive future, you know, we both love you. We're both going to be there for your high school graduation. We're both going to be there for your wedding. We're both going to be there for all these big moments in your life. I think that children in particular really appreciate that kind of futuristic, affirmation that this isn't over next week. We're not finished being a family next week. We're going to go on. The version of our family might look a little bit different.
We're two-home family.
Yeah, but we still continue to be a family. And as you were talking, I remember when my daughter was in middle school, and a friend of hers was at our dinner table one night talking about the fact that her parents were divorced. And I said, really? I didn't realize. And she said, yeah, but it's okay because we're happier now. Yeah. And I said, okay. And the arrangement that they made for their children, they had 5 children. The arrangement that they made for themselves in a mediation was that the family home was actually the children's home.
Ew, don't start talking to me about this thing. I'm not a fan of that.
and the parents moved back and forth, which I had never heard of before in my life. And the little girl that was sitting at our dinner table, initially, I think she thought it was really cool. And then as time went on, the sense I got from her was that she was just confused all the time.
Yeah, that's called nesting. And sometimes each party stays somewhere else during the other person's time. So there's 3 homes basically, or they're crashing somewhere. It can work, and I've seen it work very well for a limited period of time while a house is listed for sale or it's going to be sold within a year. and they just don't want to uproot the child while the house is but they just for whatever reason can't live under the same roof. It's a very small group of people, and then they do this nesting thing, but the children feel like they're the ones in charge of the house. It's not about that. I've had so many people, let's say it's a woman who's lived in, we got a lot of country club communities around here, they've been in Lansdowne, Belmont, River Creek, they're in this nice golf course community, and now they have to go move to the small home because, they can't afford to live on the 8th hole or whatever, and they go live in a 2-bedroom apartment until they can get their home equity and all their other money to go try to get something bigger. But I hear, without exception, oh, it's so much nicer to wake up and not have that tension, and that cloud of negativity isn't there. And, when a parent says, oh, we're going to move, and let's say there's been a flood, and taking it out of the divorce context, we're going to go stay in that fun gymnasium on the cots with the big red cross on them, and we're going to have a good time until we get to our next place. Yay! That's what the child will follow their parents' cue on. And if a parent says, we're going to go live in a new 2-bedroom apartment, and we're going to put some stickers on your walls, and do you want to pick out the super action heroes or the princesses, depending on, what your child is into. And if it's portrayed as a happy, good thing, the child will be fine, because the negativity, the fighting, the conflict, if that's what was going on, is no longer there. It's not about the big house. And too many people tell me, I'm so much happier leaving that great big place. And even though we're in a tiny place, I don't know how long we'll be in this place, we're happy, So the child will take the cue from the parent. But to tell them, oh no, they love this house and it would be terrible if they had to leave this house. It's not about the house. It's about the home, and it's about the love in the home and the lack of conflict in the home. So nesting can work short term, but long term, it is not a solution, in my opinion.
But I applaud that family's attempt to do what they thought was right for their children. And then, as time went on, like I said, and the children were getting more confused, then they did approach it differently and they changed things up. And so I think that your point was a fantastic point, in that it's always what is best for your kids. You have to really concentrate on how you talk to them, what you say to them, when you say it, where you say it. These are really important points for all of us to take to heart. And I know that you go into much greater detail in your book about these things.
If I can say something and interrupt you, you made a very good point, though. You said that your friends tried this and then they did that. And understand that when you go to litigation, there's a ruling and that's it, period. But when you engage in a non-litigated form of dispute resolution, you can try this and then you can try that. And if that doesn't work, you can do this other thing. And that's one of the other great benefits to non-litigated forms of dispute resolution, is you can see what works for the kids. Do they like that schedule, switching on Wednesdays and weekends? Maybe they want to do week on, week off. Ooh, that seems like an awful long time for a parent not to see a child. Usually it's people that can't co-parent that just kind of pass the child off on Fridays or Sundays. But maybe they are co-parenting wonderfully. The child just wants to stay put for a full week. Some older kids are okay with week on, week off thing. Younger kids, not so much maybe. And it might also depend on the child. So it's a great thing if you're mediating or collaborating or negotiating amicably, where you can try out different things. Hey, let's do this for 3 months. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to that or try this other thing. Whereas when you go to court and you have to fight it out and you get a ruling, that's it. You're stuck with it.
Exactly right. So the other, you mentioned also, there are some really horrific things that you've seen parents do and say to their children. And I know that in your book, that is a substantial chapter. Yeah. And so for as much as I always like to reinforce the good, the positive, the happy, there's the book. you know, we don't want to focus on the negatives, but that's a really important chapter to read and understand, so that even if you're not the person in the divorce, maybe it's your adult children that are getting a divorce, maybe it's your parents that are getting a divorce and you have younger siblings. It's, you know, maybe it's, you know, who knows, but knowing what not to say can be just as important as knowing what to say. And so although we've focused on the more positive aspects in this number 5 of the 5 series, I would encourage everyone, and maybe I can entice Rachel to come back and do another video segment, but I think it is important to know what to avoid doing and saying as well.
That could be another conversation, but unfortunately, every time you say something, I just feel like I could go on and on. So I'll just keep this brief. You use the phrase adult children, but let's not forget, I do a lot of divorces for people in their 50s who have adult children in their 20s. I've done many and have many divorces for people in their 60s who have kids who are married with their own kids. It's still a thing that is to be considered when you're divorcing and have adult children. It affects them too. It absolutely does. And it might affect them in ways that maybe aren't so much intended, in terms of they might wind up helping out a parent who is older. But even if both parents are merrily going about their own way, it still affects their adult children, and it's still something that they need to understand will have an impact. And I think they do. I'm just saying, for your listening audience, a lot of people don't consider the fact that adult children are impacted, same as minor children.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. Really, really good point. So, well, Rachel, I think that this leads me to inviting you for another video session so that we can talk about that one really substantial chapter. And so I hope that you have it in you to do another video recording for our channel. And I want to, again, thank you so much for all your time, experience, dedication, and passion for this particular topic and helping people get divorced in the way that best benefits them. And if I have mentioned it, you know, too many times, I have no apologies whatsoever. You should log on to Rachel's website, virk-law.com. You should read the resources that are on her website, buy the book. It's available on Amazon. And like I said before, I will definitely put those links in the description. If this information applies to you, I hope that you got something out of the series. If it applies to someone you know and love, be sure that you share it with them so that everyone, hopefully, is lucky enough to have an advocate like Rachel on their side. So, Rachel, thank you very much. I really can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
All right. Well, everybody, that's it for the 5 of 5 series. As always, be good humans, and we'll see you in the next video.